Welcome back to the Gulag, otherwise known as your favorite hangout place, the PPG. Today, we are talking about what if Obi-Wan was the Chosen One. This is another fan theory, we're back. Before I get into this one though, I want to say something real quick. For those of you guys that are continuous watchers on the channel, I am preparing for an audition that is on Friday, this Friday, so I'm getting ready for that, so if I'm not posting these series as often, that is why. I'm still trying to continue uploading every day-ish, so please bear with me. It's coming up, and I'm just really focused on it, and it's a big deal for me. So, anyways, let's get straight into today's theory. What does it mean to be the Jedi's Chosen One? According to the Jedi prophecy, the Chosen One is meant to bring balance to the Force. Anakin Skywalker, as we know in canon, is the Jedi who brought balance to the Force, and before becoming Darth Vader, he would have become the most powerful Force user in all of Star Wars. In this scenario, though, we are crowning Obi Wan Kenobi, Master Hello there, the Chosen One. And he will be replacing Anakin as having the highest midichlorian count within a living being, and this is where the story begins. Obi Wan Kenobi is born on Stujon in 57 BBY, but isn't discovered by a Jedi for another 3 years. Taken to the Jedi Temple as a 3-year-old, he is examined to have the highest midichlorian count of any living being across the galaxy. Since Obi-Wan is so young, at this point we can assume that he would continue his training rather normally, because he wouldn't be seeking attachment. He wouldn't have had attachments, he wouldn't have really made attachments. When you're 3 years old, you don't really remember a lot. You know, you kind of have some basic principles, but you're not going to be as attached as Anakin was at the age of 10. And though in this timeline, Obi-Wan would excel through his training at the temple, he would be at the top of his class every time they progressed to new topics, much like Anakin did, but he wouldn't be bullied because he would be growing at the same pace his classmates were. In other words, he'd be the same age of his classmates. He would be growing up with his classmates, and obviously being the best, and they might dislike him for being the best, but more so than not, they would fit in with him because they knew him, they were growing up with him, and much like in canon, Obi-Wan would spend time with the Grand Master in Jedi youngling training sessions. And eventually, though, Kenobi would excel at his incredible rate and would become the apprentice to Qui-Gon Jinn. And much like in canon, again, Qui-Gon Jinn would teach his apprentice in the way of a strength and ability in restraint. And though Jinn, like his master Dooku, had issues with the Jedi and what the Jedi were doing, he knew that Kenobi would bring balance to the Force, and saw it as an honor to train the young boy. Jinn and Kenobi would be sent on various missions, but the first, most important one would be to Mandalore, where Obi-Wan Kenobi would meet his dearly beloved Satine Kryze. While protecting the young Duchess of Mandalore, Obi-Wan fell in love, and though Obi-Wan had this love for Satine, he wouldn't leave the Order unless she were to say the word. Obi-Wan would progress in his training much faster than his canon adaptation, and before the invasion of Naboo in 32 BBY, Qui-Gon Jinn considered Obi-Wan an equal, worthy of becoming a knight. And though this is very similar to canon, I want to express that Qui-Gon wouldn't have promoted him to knight at this point because he just didn't see it as the right time. He just felt it in the Force that it wasn't the right time. But as a duelist, as a Force user, Obi-Wan was just about equal with Qui-Gon Jinn, if not more powerful at this point. Before becoming knighted, Kenobi would go with his master to the Lucrehulk stationed over at Naboo, and the events of The Phantom Menace would play out similarly all the way to Tatooine. Anakin Skywalker would be discovered by Qui-Gon Jinn, and eventually would be brought before the Council. And though Anakin was born from the Force, his midichlorian count didn't come close to that of Obi-Wan Kenobi's. The Council would be less likely to accept Anakin into the Order because of his age. He was 10 years old, and wasn't the Chosen One. But Anakin would follow Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan back to Naboo. As the Battle of Naboo ensued, Obi-Wan and his master would encounter a Zabrak Sith assassin named Darth Maul, the same one that they met on Tatooine. This time though, when blades clashed, when Maul fought the two Jedi, he would be no match for both of them, and Kenobi was much stronger than his master, and he would help Qui-Gon defeat the Sith assassin, striking him down in the main hangar bay, not even getting into a long duel. Anakin would barely survive the Lucrehulk and would be scolded by Qui-Gon Jinn. As the battle concluded, Obi-Wan would become a Knight of the Republic, and Anakin would become Qui-Gon Jinn's apprentice. The reluctant council would allow Anakin to be trained under Qui-Gon Jinn because of the stellar job he did on Naboo. Kenobi, on the other hand, would be sent on missions galaxy-wide. Kenobi would also be given an apprentice, but Kenobi was pushing himself to be a better Force user and a lightsaber wielder. Obi-Wan wanted to be the best Jedi he could be. For the Order, Obi-Wan would confide Jedi Masters like Yoda, Mace, Plo, and Fisto because he wanted to excel at his abilities. While Anakin was very strong in the Force, he was a little bit arrogant, and in this situation we're saying that Obi-Wan is going to try and excel in the Force because that's who Obi-Wan was. Obi-Wan as a character wanted to excel. He wanted to be the best, and he eventually did become the best of Form 3. So I think in this scenario, I think it's fair to say that Obi-Wan would have progressed to probably his Revenge of the Sith state by the time of Attack of the Clones. So when Attack of the Clones rolls around, he would be sent to be the guardian of Padme Amidala. And though the Chancellor had originally suggested that Anakin and Jin protect her, Obi-Wan and his apprentice were already on planet. Much like in Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan would eventually find himself on Kamino, discovering the clone army, eventually ending up on Geonosis. Obi-Wan would confront Dooku on Geonosis, but not after being captured. Differently, Obi-Wan would run into Dooku while he was talking to Separatist leaders. Dooku would create discourse with Kenobi, and he would tell Kenobi that the Republic was now under the control of a Sith Lord. Kenobi would question him, ask him to disclose the information, telling him that he could help not just his apprentice, but the legacy as a former Jedi. Dooku would tell Obi-Wan that it wasn't about the Jedi anymore, and that the Jedi had become too enthralled with politics and have lost their way. Obi-Wan would listen. His master spoke similarly about the Jedi. Obi-Wan would tell Dooku that betraying the Republic and the Jedi wouldn't fix anything. He would say that he was the chosen one, and that he could bring balance to the Force, but he would need Dooku's help, saying, "I know you've left the Order, but you're not a bad man." Dooku would ponder silently. "Dooku, you have not left the light. It's still inside you." Dooku would let Kenobi go, saying that war was beginning, and that those at the top of the Republic have the power to wipe out the Jedi. Obi-Wan would contact the Council and the Republic, who would eventually arrive on Geonosis, and the battle and the war would begin. The Republic would win the battle of Geonosis, and actually by a lot more because they would have caught the Separatists off guard. The Separatists would lose more in the battle, and there wouldn't be a duel at the end. Dooku would escape to Coruscant, and in the temple, Kenobi would tell the Jedi Council that the Republic was under the control of a Sith Lord, and that maybe the Grand Army of the Republic was not just a gift. As the Clone Wars began, Obi-Wan's apprentice and Skywalker would become knights, meaning that Kenobi was now a master Jedi. But his former master Qui-Gon Jinn was becoming unsettled by the war effort the Jedi had taken. Obi-Wan would talk to his former master about the encounter with Dooku, and the two of them would be sent to Serena, where Dooku was Count of. The two Jedi wouldn't be fought at the entrances, but they would encounter the Count in his throne room. "This war needs to end. The Jedi can be saved, and so could the Republic. We need your help." Now, Obi-Wan at this time would start to see the Jedi in the same light as his former master and Dooku, and that the Jedi were betraying their mandate and their oath to be protectors of the peace, and that though the Clone Wars were beginning, they could be ended before casualties were brought across the galaxy. Qui-Gon Jinn would tell his former master that they agreed that the Jedi needed to come back to their ways, but this was the wrong way of going about it, and that whoever was convincing him of better was lying. Now, this route has a lot of diplomatic talks in it, and I want to explain that before I go any further. This is because Obi-Wan is a very diplomatic Jedi. Unlike Anakin, he's not lightsabers ablaze. He's a very diplomatic guy. Every time you see Kenobi in the Clone Wars, he's trying to make a discussion. He's not going in for the kill. So Dooku would tell the Jedi that it was time for them to leave, and that he wouldn't disclose the Sith Master. Obi-Wan would step forward. "Balance must be brought to the Force. If you will not help restore it, you will be stopped from enforcing its demise." Igniting his blade, Qui-Gon Jinn behind him would do the same. Dooku would ignite his blade with a grin on his face. Obi-Wan, though, was a much better duelist at this time than his canon self, but he would still be no match for Dooku. Qui-Gon Jinn, though, would also struggle against his former master. Dooku would eventually make a daring escape, as Magna Guards would approach the Jedi and throw off their pursuit. Jinn and Kenobi would return to Coruscant and be dispatched on further missions. Now, in this timeline, Sidious was still interested in Skywalker, and though Skywalker was not nearly as powerful as Kenobi, he was still interested in the Jedi Knight. But Obi-Wan would grow in strength as he would be thrown into duels with Grievous, Ventress, and even Dooku from time to time. And as Kenobi was humble in the Force and trusted his feelings and instincts, he became one of the most powerful duelists in the Order, even besting that of Master Plo and Mace Windu. Obi-Wan eventually would be sent to Mandalore to dethrone a plot to take out his beloved Satine Kryze. They would reunite and fireworks would rise between the two of them. Of course, Obi-Wan was bound to the code, and Satine wouldn't say the word, and they both knew that they loved each other dearly. After Obi-Wan's mission with Satine, he'd be sent back to the battlefront. Now our timeline would find us at the late seasons of the Clone Wars, where Kenobi returns to Mandalore to fend off the Death Watch. And now because Maul was dead and Savage was never to find Maul, they would never side with the Death Watch. So the Death Watch would fail, and Satine would be, again, rescued by Kenobi. And because Kenobi was feeling lackluster towards the Order, he would share a beautiful night with Satine before returning to the battlefront. Obi-Wan would continue his campaigns across the galaxy before being led on a train to Sifo Dyas, where he would be reunited with young Skywalker. They would be led to a former aide of the Chancellor, Valorum, Silman. But while Silman was being choked, Obi-Wan would send a force wave out the door, and it would be so powerful to knock the Count off his feet. "Stay here, Anakin." Obi-Wan would leave the room, and Anakin would pick up the aide, Silman, and would be told that Tyrannus was the one who killed Sifo Dyas. Anakin would follow Kenobi out, who was already engaged in combat with Dooku. "Why did you kill Sifo Dyas, Dooku?" Dooku would smirk and laugh. Obi-Wan would be more powerful than the Count at this point, and would begin to best him in combat. Dooku was knowing that he was losing the battle, and he was looking for an escape, but Pike surrounded him and stunned him with stun guns, and he was placed in a holding cell. Kenobi would contact the Council, who would send an acclamator to pick up Silman and bring him back to Coruscant, ensuring that he wouldn't be captured by the wrong hands. Windu, Yoda, and Plo Koon would arrive, to Pike's dismay. Kenobi told them, though, that it was for Dooku, that they were to interrogate Dooku, and he was going to tell them why he killed Sifo Dyas. Now the 5 Jedi would return to Dooku's cell, and he would be awakened. He would be enraged at Yoda's sight, but would remain calm. Kenobi would start, "Why did you kill Master Sifo Dyas?" The other Jedi would join and begin to interrogate the Count, and he would eventually spill the information that he and Sifo Dyas had put the order in for the clone army. Knowing that Dooku played a role in the clone army was worrying enough. They knew Dooku had more information, but needed to get more from him. More council members would be brought to the Pikes planet, and the Pikes were paid accordingly for the Jedi's time. The Jedi would eventually learn the secret of the Sith Lord, and learn that the clone army had been created to wipe out the Jedi through the usage of inhibitor chips. Dooku was in large sums of pain from the interrogation. The entire Jedi Council was present, and even Skywalker was there too, and the Chosen One, of course, and they were too powerful for the Count to resist. The Jedi decided that they needed to act quickly because they knew that Palpatine had a plan to knock out the Jedi, to wipe them out. The Jedi would contact both the Separatist government and the Republic, specifically Amidala's Peace Corps. Kenobi would be sent to Kamino to discuss with the Kaminoans. The Kaminoans thought their inhibitor chip was for loose cannon Jedi, not a mass execution. The Kaminoans would understand that Dooku was setting them up for failure in the long run if they didn't fix the problem immediately. Without Dooku in contact, they followed suit and began removing inhibitor chips from the clones on Kamino. Anakin and Plo would be sent to Sereno to meet with the Separatist government to tell them that Palpatine needed to be brought to justice if they were to end the war. Now by this time a majority of them wanted peace, same with the people within the Republic, and knowing that the war had cost them so much was created by Dooku and Palpatine, they would rally together. While Padme would be told by Yoda and Windu that Palpatine was behind the war, they would, behind the Chancellor's back, negotiate with the Separatists to come together in the Republic Senate and ask that Palpatine remove himself from power. During this session in the Senate that would last for several hours, the Jedi would move fast to take advantage of the peace talks that created a ceasefire. Clones across the galaxy would have their inhibitor chips removed, starting with the Coruscant Guard, and so on and so forth. During the Senate meeting, Obi-Wan would return from a Kamino with a batch of clone troopers that had had all their chips removed. They would be stationed around the Senate building to stop the Chancellor if he refused to give up his power. Palpatine, seeing that the Senate was turning against him, would call for a break, call for a moment to halt for an hour, that the senators would eventually return. Palpatine would then lower himself into his offices. The Senate in this situation, I'm saying, is disagreeing with Palpatine, but he's going to lower himself to his Senate office anyways, because he's taking an hour-long break. Palpatine would tell Masameda that damage had to be done before his plan failed. He would contact Commander Fox. Execute Order 66. Commander Fox would oblige, and they would make their way for the Senate building. Clones across the galaxy would be told to execute Order 66. Many Jedi, though, would be spared. Most clones hadn't seen any reason for the Jedi to be executed, especially those with particularly favorable Jedi. And the reason I said the Coruscant Guard would do it is because their one job was to serve the Chancellor. They didn't serve anybody else but the Chancellor. So the Coruscant Guard made its way to the Senate building, and the Jedi would confront Palpatine, who would be especially pissed off. Master Jedi, what do I owe this surprise? Chancellor Palpatine, you are under arrest for committing sedition against the Republic. Surrender. You will not stop what is coming for you. We know your plan, and we've taken steps ahead of this meeting to assure it won't follow through. Surrender. Never. Crimson would shine, just as blue, green, and amethyst would glow. A duel would ensue. Palpatine knew he was no match in this situation. He had no escape, except his entrance and his chair that levitated into the Senate room. The battle pushed him back, and he used his chair platform to his advantage, and the chair would levitate upwards, and the four would battle each other in a contested match of skill and power. Senators and clones alike would run into the hall and see the battle on hand. The Coruscant Guard would also arrive and would want to open fire, but they couldn't, because their job was to protect the Chancellor, but they were unsure if they could actually save him from this battle, because he was interlocked with the Jedi, and they didn't want to miss. Sidious had no weakest target in this situation. He had to fight Master Windu, who used Vapad, Yoda, who was a Master, as the same form as him, which was Form 4, and Obi Wan Kenobi, the Chosen One, who was using Form 3. Palpatine fought hard, but after being sent off his platform, tumbling to the ground below, the Coruscant Guard would open fire on the Jedi, but the Jedi would jump down to Palpatine's positions. The clones from Kamino would turn against their brothers, and a clone war would begin, such as the Clone Wars were ending. The clones from Kamino would fight fist with fist against their brothers from Coruscant. On the Senate floor of darkness, lightsabers would illuminate the darkness. Palpatine had his off and sent lightning towards Kenobi, hoping to keep the Chosen One out of contested combat. But Kenobi was too fast. He felt the presence of the Dark Lord and whipped his saber around and deflected the bolt towards the Chancellor, eventually pulverizing him and ridding the galaxy of the Sith Lord. Dooku would be the last of the Sith and would be tried at the Reunited Republic and be sentenced to prison for crimes against the Republic. Padme and Bail Organa would become leading members of the new Senate, and the Republic would be stronger than ever. BB-1 droids would be reprogrammed for the Republic, and the clones would become aides to keeping the peace in the galaxy. Obi-Wan would become a council member. Much like in canon, he would also represent a lot of what his master Qui-Gon Jinn and Dooku had to offer, but in a more Jedi-like way. Obi-Wan embodied a Jedi, but he believed they should be less political, and the council would eventually agree to keep their nose out of politics. Obi-Wan would return to Mandalore to find that he had a child with Satine, and that she had been keeping it a secret from the public who the father was. Kenobi vowed to her that the child wouldn't be brought to the Order, and that he would stay on Mandalore for extended missions to help her raise their child. He would tell the Order that the Death Watch was still a notable threat, and that much like his first mission to Mandalore, this would be an extended mission. Their child would grow to learn the Force and use the Force, and Obi-Wan would have brought balance to the Force, bringing harmony and peace to the galaxy. Wow. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This one was a lot of fun to make. This one was really hard though. I had to take a break mid-writing it because I really didn't know where I was going with this. This was a very congested story. I mean, this is probably the longest spanning story that I've told, going from 57 BBY all the way to the Clone Wars, which were probably around, 21 to 19 BBY. So this is a really long theory, and honestly, I'm pretty happy with it, honestly. I think Kenobi would have had a much different life than what's his face? Than Anakin. I think that Obi-Wan would have taken the duties of being the Chosen One much differently than Anakin as well, and I think that he would have been much more mature about handling that situation. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did making it. If you do like these theories, stay tuned for more. I got more coming out. But regardless, I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, may the Force be with you.